The View is 25 years old next year. We've only had one Asian American co-host this show. So does that mean that one of us should be leaving at some point because there's not enough representation? We're talking about, is identity politics more important than qualifications of a job? And I think that's a question going forward that the progressive left is going to have to reconcile.
With all of what's going on in the world with the anti-Asian hate and, want to just, say right off the top that stand in solidarity with Asian Americans and Asian folks all over the world. And, as a, black American, we know all about, persecution and oppression and hate crimes being committed against us. And so, we have to have, we should be reflexively as Black people standing in solidarity with our Asian siblings, our Asian comrades, and to lock arms with them and to be in solidarity with them and, stand up against this sort of this hatred. And I mean, there's been not before this spa shooting that happened last week in Atlanta, there were just all these instances of elderly Asian people being like sucker punched or ran up on by young people and pushed to the ground or assaulted and beaten and just the one horrific story after the next. And it's really terrible stuff. And it's all under the guise, we did a video on this show. We did an interview with Professor Christian Chun from University of Massachusetts. And it was a really great interview we talked about yellow peril and model minority myth. I highly recommend it. Check it out. I think that it was, it foreshadowed some of these events. And, we talked about these things being recurring, issues moving forward that, were spawned out of some of the return of this yellow peril rhetoric, this idea of like the dangerous other, the dangerous Asian immigrant or so there's a lot of sort of rhetoric that comes around that. Yellow peril, was born out of some of the, it was an anti, there was the Chinese Exclusion Act that was targeted Asian workers, Asian, immigrant workers and try to prevent them from coming to Chinese and East Asian immigrant workers and preventing them from coming to the U.S. during, this was when they were using, exploiting Asian immigrant labor here in the country to build railroads and for the gold rush. And there's been this rhetoric of like, anti-worker, we don't want these workers coming and stealing American jobs and taking American jobs. And so there was a lot of like sort of anti-worker sentiment that comes out of it, but, born out of a racism and a xenophobia against Asian people. And in that case, particularly East Asian folks. And so here, here we have Meghan McCain just saying some dumb shit on The View. Meghan McCain's one of the hosts of The View, and she just had some real audacity to come out with some wild this is just wild bit here. So here, I'll show you. Let's take a look here and a listen. And so this is Meghan McCain, Meghan McCain is the daughter of John McCain, who is a warmonger. He's a Republican, he's passed away now, but he was a Republican politician, senator, ran against Barack Obama. But he is he's a U.S. imperialist, just a standard right-wing neoconservative. And he, so this is his daughter, who has the job on The View, and for the reason that she's his daughter, essentially. That's her qualifications, is that she's the daughter of John McCain. And so here she is on The View, and she says, let me play this clip here for you.
Are qualified to get into Ivy League excluded women farmers. And so we're going to a place where even if people need money, even if people are qualified to get into Ivy Leagues, race and gender is more important than your skill qualifications, the content of your character. It is not what Martin Luther King Jr. preached. I think this is a very, very slippery slope. I was very surprised to hear someone like Tammy Duckworth say something like this. She got a lot of blowback from a lot of people, not just on the right. And I think this is actually just the natural progression of identity politics. And I will say, just to put a cap on this, The View is 25 years old next year. We've only had one Asian American co-host this show. So does that mean that one of us should be leaving at some point because there's not enough representation? We're talking about, is identity politics more important than qualifications of a job? And I think that's a question going forward that the progressive left is going to have to reconcile.
Yeah, there you go. That's Meghan McCain talking about, is identity politics more important than qualifications? This is a white woman out here whose entirety of her qualifications, talking about, trying to perpetuate some myth of meritocracy as if she achieved this job through some meritocratic means, right? She deserved this job, right? Why? Because of her qualifications, not because of her identity. She's literally on this she has this multi-million-dollar job because of her literal identity as the daughter of one Senator John McCain. She is not qualified for this job in any other way, shape, or form, more so than she is no more qualified for that job than I am. All right. And that's a show that I'm pretty sure has all women hosts, and still, all right, she's still not even, as qualified as I am for that job. Right. So this is seriously, like, all jokes aside, this is somebody who she has done nothing to deserve this job, this multi-million-dollar job, but she's out here talking about, this, are we going to use identity politics? Are we going to get rid of one of us? Who she's thinking, she's like, are we going to get rid of one of us and allow some Asian, just for the sake of representation? Are we going to allow some Asian person to come on and take one of our jobs? And so it's more of this, she's doing the same yellow peril rhetoric. And this is just racist, xenophobic language wrapped up in a pretty white supremacist little bow, and, U.S. imperialist. And she's talking about, she mentions Senator Tammy Duckworth, who is I believe is Asian American, and is a war, American war, like veteran. And so American veteran, but parents, Asian American, I believe. And she's like, talking about her and saying, oh, how could she say this? How could she talk about this in this way of, like, just basic, like, the idea of representation and people seeing certain representation. And somehow these racists always find a way to, like, bring in Martin Luther King into the argument. And it's like, this is not what this ain't it, Chief. This ain't it, Chief. This is not what Martin Luther King was talking about. And, Meghan McCain, she does this stuff all the time. And she's just a whiny, rich, spoiled brat who never had to work for a damn thing her entire life, got everything handed to her just based on her identity. And she'd be, her family's well off. She'd be fine without this job. She'd still be a multimillionaire. She does not need this job, but she's taking up space that should be occupied by a decent left-wing woman of, of some color, give it to an Asian woman, please, by all means, but just let them be left-wing, please, 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 please. So yeah, I just thought that this was hilarious and ridiculous and absurd. And, yeah, What Up America says, they took our germs. That's exactly what this reminded me of, that South Park. Just, they took our germs. So absolutely, that reeks of this. Tammy says, throwback to John McCain saying how he, quote, hates the gook and, quote, will hate them as long as I live. Wow. Well, he dead now, but it lives on in his daughter, though. Yes. Damn. Wow. I didn't know that he said all that. Like, that's just why. Yeah. Just wildly racist. So, incredible. They're like father, like daughter here. Right. And, it's just wild that she's out here talking about, pretending like she got her job based off of some sort of meritocracy when we all know what it was. It was entirely based off of her identity.